How's it going, everyone? It's Javi here, and today we're going to talk about the next potential snowstorms that could move through the Midwest and Northeast within the next week and even a little bit beyond that, as we're going to be in a pattern where the temperatures are going to be much cooler than normal, as well as the fact that we're going to see a lot more clipper systems move through as a result of those strong northwesterly winds we're going to see over the next few days and weeks, I should say. So let's first begin with how the European model is looking like as of right now. We do have some heavy lake effect snow where in those areas right up along Lake Erie as well as Lake Ontario, you could expect anywhere between 2 to 3 feet of snow, and in some localized areas such as the Watertown area close to Lake Ontario, you could expect potentially over 4 feet of snow, which is quite insane. So make sure to prepare in a lot of those areas because the snowfall will be heavy and it'll last for days. However, outside of that, outside of the lake effect snow we're seeing, it's going to be relatively dry for the most part and much cooler than normal, as we clearly see a pretty significant jet stream dip thanks to the European model's forecast we're seeing. So if we were to continue to move forward with the forecast, we do see that it's going to be relatively dry. The winds will be relatively strong from the northwest, which will bring down the temperatures a lot. But it's not until we approach maybe the late portion of next week we begin to see a clipper system move through into the northeast, where we do see some heavy snowfall over Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, even Wisconsin and northern Minnesota get involved. Now, this clipper system isn't necessarily producing a heavy amount of snowfall, but it is certainly enough to produce at least a couple of inches of snowfall, and definitely could make it hard for some of your travel plans. And we even see the snowfall move in closer to the coastal northeast, at least compared to what we've been seeing with the previous storms that have been moving through, where the snowfall has mainly been relegated a little bit further northward. But we do see the snowfall have the potential of moving southward to where cities like Boston and maybe even New York City could get their first snowfall out of this, as we do see the snowfall move quite a bit southward. However, again, we're going to see that the low pressure system, it might be a little bit too far northward to where maybe Boston and New York City might not experience snowfall. However, look at the forecast, how we're going at 140 hours out. There's still a lot of time between now and the Thursday time frame to get a better idea of where this storm system will go. And the primary reason why this low pressure system is moving further southward is because we do have a strong amount of ridging built right over the southern United States. So that's going to prevent it from moving as far south as it could. But there's still that possibility that maybe if this ridge is weaker, we could see some snowfall even accumulating in New York City and Boston. But again, by the looks of it, it doesn't seem like this will produce a ton of snowfall. I'll say the range would likely be right around 3 to 6 inches for the most part if you're involved in the snowfall, because this isn't necessarily tapping into a very warm and humid environment for the snowfall to be heavy at times. It should be a large area of light to moderate snowfall, but it's still, of course, something you want to pay attention to. And I'm sure for the snow lovers out there, anything really counts when it comes to accumulating snowfall. So there's certainly that potential in the interior northeast, as the GFS model is also showing a very similar forecast, which makes me believe that we could see a forecast that's around the ballpark when it comes to the snowfall. We do see the heavy snowfall right over the interior northeast as well, but mainly staying just north of the New York City area, where the storm system mainly takes an eastward trajectory before it's able to move further southward, which allows the snowfall to mainly stay stuck right over the interior northeast. So continuing to move forward. However, there is that possibility of another clipper system. Now, this is a little bit more uncertain in the more long-term future, but when it comes to this storm system, there's still certainly uncertainty. The biggest thing we're going to need to pay close attention to is how strong the ridging will be just to the south of this storm system to really determine the impacts when it comes to the amount of snowfall you should expect. So here's the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast. We do see this is Continuing to move forward, this is where the storm system approaches. We do see a decent amount of ridging right over the Midwest and the southern United States in general. Now, the key difference between the GFS and the European models forecast is if we were to take a look at the GFS models forecast, the ridging and the low pressure system isn't as strong. And what that means is that with the ridge and the low a little bit less powerful, that means the northwesterly winds would be less powerful because there's going to be less of a strong pressure gradient between the low and the ridge, which means that this the winds would move more from a westerly direction rather than from a northwesterly direction, which would push the storm further southward, like the European model wants to take it towards. So the key thing will be the strength of this ridge as well as the slow. By the time we approach next week, I don't think we'll get a good idea until maybe the Monday time frame when we get a good idea how strong this ridge is as well as how strong this low is, because the stronger these two things are, the more likely this trough is able to move further southward, which would allow the areas further southward like New York City and Boston to receive more snowfall out of this. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated. Let me show you guys now the European model, and we see the clear difference already. The ridge is a lot stronger, the low is a lot stronger, so we see a much more significant jet stream dip as a result. So that allows snowfall to move just a little bit further southward as well as the cold air to move a little bit further southward. So definitely keep that in mind. When it comes to the certainty, I'll say it's highly certain at this point. The interior Northeast, anywhere that's northwest of Boston, you should experience a pretty large area of, I'll say, right around 1 to 3 to 3 to 6 inches of snowfall for the most part. It should be consistent throughout the interior Northeast. Since it's a very large storm, but not necessarily a storm that will have heavy snow bands in a specific area. It's going to be broad and mainly the same strength in all areas where you're going to receive snowfall. So you should expect right around that range. In fact, let me show you guys what the GFS model is currently forecasting when it comes to snowfall right now. So if we were to take a quick look at that, we do see mainly an area, like I said, right around 3 to 6 to 1 to 3 inches of snowfall. Now, you're probably looking at the map, seeing the feet of snowfall right up along the Great Lakes, but that's more so associated with the snowfall that we're going to see over the next few days from this lake effect snow, not necessarily from this snowstorm we're going to see by the Thursday time frame of next week. So expect a good area of right around 1 to 3 to 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. Albany, maybe around 3 to 6 inches of snowfall you should expect. Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, those areas should expect right around 1 to 3 inches of snowfall going into with this Thursday snowstorm. So definitely keep that in mind. And there's still that possibility it could move further southward. Like Boston is right on the border of receiving potentially no snowfall or potentially receiving right around 1 inch of snowfall. So there's still uncertainty, especially if you're closer to the rain snow line with the amount of snowfall you should receive for this snowstorm. But I'll certainly keep you guys updated. But the interior Northeast, definitely prepare for this snowstorm by the time we approach the Thursday time frame. Now, moving on to the next potential snowstorm, which could bring the snowfall a little bit further southward, and I think has a higher potential of impacting a larger, more populated area. So if we were to take a look at that, so this is a snowstorm which would happen in the Saturday time frame. As we see, this brings a broad area of snowfall just to the north of the Ohio River Valley. So places like Indianapolis are getting involved, Columbus, Louisville, Kentucky, even Chicago maybe could get involved with some accumulating snowfall. Des Moines, Iowa is getting involved. Of course, the Dakotas would get involved in a scenario like this. And also, this could impact the mid-Atlantic states where maybe Virginia, the Delmar Peninsula, and the Washington, D.C. area could receive accumulating snowfall. This would happen during the weekend of December 7th. And look at the forecast hour I'm going at. So there's still plenty of time to see if this forecast persists and if the computer models agree with this forecast. And right now, there's still a decent amount of disagreement because the European model isn't expecting much of a storm system at all when it comes to this low pressure system. So if we were to take a look at the European model, we see that this storm system is almost non-existent, where this is a snowstorm the GFS model wants to bring to the Ohio River Valley as well as the mid-Atlantic. In the GFS models forecast, the snowstorm is definitely pretty, I wouldn't say powerful, but it's certainly powerful enough to bring at least a good area of 3 to 6 and maybe 5 to 8 inches of snowfall in the mid-Atlantic and the Ohio Valley. While for the European model scenario, it's almost non-existent as there just isn't a lot of instability. Now, there's several key things that we're going to need to pay close attention to. The thing that's limiting this storm in the European model scenario is that there's a bit too much ridging to the point where this isn't able to really strengthen much thanks to the amount of dry air and ridging it's going to deal with. While in the GFS model scenario, the ridging is just weak enough to allow a lot of the storm's strength to reach the United States at a powerful state. Which means that you're more likely in the GFS model scenario to receive snowfall in that instance. So we're definitely going to need to pay very close attention to the amount of ridging over the western United States. So if we were to take a look at that, so at the 500 millibar height anomaly, we see that the ridging is very strong in the European model scenario, and this is a storm that the GFS model wants to bring right around the weekend of December 7th. In the European model scenario, it's almost non-existent, while in the GFS model scenario, we see the ridging is a lot weaker to promote a much more powerful storm, and a storm that moves more quickly as well, which allows the storm system to move a little bit faster, as well as not deal with as much dry air since it's moving quite a bit quickly through the Canadian United States border. So that's a key we're certainly going to pay very close attention to. But the fact that the GFS model and the European model are at least somewhere around the ballpark when it comes to the trajectory of this storm system as it moves into the mid-Atlantic as well as the Ohio Valley makes me believe that there is at least somewhat of a certainty when it comes to the trajectory of this storm system. The key thing is that we're just going to need to see how powerful it is, and I'll certainly keep you guys updated. But if the GFS model scenario was 100% correct, you easily could expect anywhere between 3 to 6 to 5 to 8 inches of snowfall in a scenario like this, which is definitely a lot, especially for the areas a lot further southward, where in places like Richmond and Virginia Beach, you don't experience snowstorms very often. So to have a snowstorm like this would certainly be very powerful, and I'll certainly keep you guys updated if we do see any changes with the forecast. And of course, there still could be that possibility that maybe the snowfall moves a little bit further northward to where maybe Philadelphia and New York City gets involved. When we're talking about forecasts this far out, anything really goes. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated. So pretty much stay tuned over the next few videos once you get a little bit more certainty with the snowstorm for the weekend of December 7th. But for this next snowstorm that's expected to happen right around the Wednesday or Thursday time frame for the Midwest and Northeast, for the interior Northeast, it's highly certain at this point you should expect 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. While for places like Boston and New York City, I'll certainly stay tuned because I think there's certainly that possibility you could receive accumulating snowfall from this snowstorm if we do see the ridging weak enough just to the south of it. But yeah, guys, that's it for now, and I thank you guys for watching.